Stumps on day 3, and I'm reunited with George Dobell. George, after I had to leave you for a little bit, do some Premier League coverage, but now I'm back and I see that it's an even more daunting task for the West Indies now. But we'll get to that in a bit. Let's talk about Stuart Broad. Absolutely amazing stuff from him again. Just 1 wicket away from 500 test wickets. And I mean, just thoughts on his performance today.
Oh, he's been magnificent all day. I think he's taken 6 in the day and 6 for about 10 runs. I mean, it's been fantastic because he finished West Indies' first innings off this morning, put his feet up for a couple of hours, watched his teammates bat, came back and made inroads with the in the West Indies second innings. So, you would think that whenever the weather relents in the next day or two, he'll reach 500 too. It's an incredible achievement and, remarkable answer to being dropped a couple of games ago.
Exactly. I think people will constantly be bringing that up. And I remember after the Ashes or during the Ashes last year, I had a little chat with Jimmy Anderson when Steve Smith was just absolutely rampant. And I asked him, what do you do? What would you do when you come up to Steve Smith like that? And he said, sometimes you just have to accept that people like this are unplayable. Was that kind of Stuart Broad in this role that he's been on since just firing back after being dropped at the Ageas Bowl test?
Well, I think people will say that. I'm not sure because he did have a very good Ashes this time last year, and he did also have a very good tour of South Africa. I think he was England's leading wicket taker there. So it's not as if this is particularly against the run of play, and maybe it's a bit misleading to say he was dropped. I mean, he didn't play in the first test, but it was very clear that England were going to rest and rotate throughout the series. So dropped is a slightly emotive term. England have 6 or 7 bowlers they would be happy to play in most situations, and he's one of them. I'm still going to say that the decision they made in the first test was just about reasonable. You know, Mark Wood is a terrific bowler and probably would have enjoyed these conditions too. So, the point is Stuart Broad felt that it was unfair that he'd been left out. He said so, and he's backed his words with achievements, and that's all you can ask him to do. I mean, he has been fantastic in this series. He's taken his wickets at a cost of 10 apiece. And he's shown that, it is too early to pension him off, him or Jimmy Anderson. So all you can do is say really well bowled. And he's been very good value for it. I do think in this second innings, maybe West Indies look, for the very first time in the series, a little bit dispirited, a little bit broken. We had a period where there were 4 substitute fielders on, and some of the fielding just wasn't good enough. They started to look a bit ragged, but that can happen. There comes a tipping point in a series. And, barring a miracle, you would think that West Indies are now reliant on Manchester weather coming to their aid. And to be fair, any city in the world you want it to rain, they've come to the right place.
Exactly. It's kind of surprising that we've not seen rain or locusts these last couple of days, but we're definitely happy that we have been getting full days of cricket. But now let's talk tomorrow, George. But given the weather forecast, I see a lot of, we can't fault England's bowlers, but the batsmen, even though they're making runs, it's kind of surprising that people would fault them, but people have been. They're saying, was it really necessary to keep batting this long? Should they have brought the West Indies in a bit earlier to bat? And maybe we would have seen Stuart Broad get his 500th wicket by now, considering the weather tomorrow. What do you think on this debate?
I think people have very short memories. This England side were bowled out for under 90 3 times last year. 4 times in the last 3 years, they lost 10 wickets in a session. What they've been crying out for is some solidity. Now, there will be moments when people get a wee bit impatient with the solidity of Sibley and Burns. But I think strongly it's a price worth paying, and it's worth reflecting again on how often England were bowled out cheaply in recent years and how different they're starting to look as a side. So, and I actually thought Rory Burns showed he had an extra gear later in the innings. He helped set up the declaration. He was extremely selfless. I think he was out for 90, wasn't it? So a lot of opening batsmen would have persuaded their captain to let them bat on a bit longer and would have played for that milestone. And there was none of that at all. So, again, I think it's worth remembering. It's day 3. It's day 3. You don't very often see England sides declare with 2 or 3 wickets down on day 3. So although there's a bad forecast for day 4, the forecast for day 5 is okay. England are in a fantastic position. They lost the first test, remember, and here we are with 2 days left in the series. West Indies need snookers to win this one, and I think the criticism is a bit unfair. I really do. I think it's very unfair.
I agree with you. I feel like only here will you see your top order going so well and solid and making runs in old-fashioned Test cricket style, and people are complaining why they didn't get off sooner. I would have taken one of their innings for the West Indies and switched it over.
Well, that's exactly the point, isn't it? West Indies would kill for a little of that level of solidity. I mean, I thought they might have given John Campbell a guard of honour when he came out to bat today, because it cannot go on. It can't go on. And it's the same really with hope as well. There's a lot of people in that West Indies top order battling for their careers. So, I think England supporters have to keep a little bit of perspective and remember how bad their batting has been in the last few years. So this is all progress.
And then now, of course, with what you just said, given the frailties in this West Indies top order, and it's already a massive mammoth task to even try and get half of these runs, to be fair. And you even pointed out the fact that they do look defeated. It's easy to just go through the motions as well. If you're Jason Holder, what are you telling your men before tomorrow and before Tuesday as well?
Well, they're getting a night's rest, and that's no bad thing. And what we've seen throughout the series, actually, is West Indies may look a bit tired, and their fielding might look a bit ragged, but they come out the next morning and they're terrific again. So they're going to have to do that. The worry is they haven't scored 320 even all series. In fact, they've scored 320 once in the last 2 years. The batting isn't actually good enough, so it's not just about attitude. It really is about going back to basics of regional cricket in the Caribbean and working out why it's not producing players. And that comes down to pitches, it comes down to the structure, it comes down to all those sort of boring things that people don't necessarily like to think about, but what creates Test quality players. And that's what the people running West Indies cricket will have to look at. I think West Indies have played some really terrific cricket in this series, and bowlers do not deserve to be on the losing side. But it would be naive and disingenuous to pretend there isn't a problem, a crisis even, of top order batting in Caribbean cricket. And that's something they're going to have to look at.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.